Well, welcome back, folks. A little update on the Ford 8N project. You can see in the background there the hydraulic pump components. We're not going to spend any time today on the hydraulic pump. I have ordered replacement parts for it. It's pretty much clean. I got a little final tune-up to do on some of the fasteners, that kind of thing, but generally it's cleaned and it's just waiting for replacement parts. So we'll come back to that assembly later, not today. What we are going to talk about though is the PTO shaft, which you can see here. And I know I've talked or touched on this before, but I thought while I was waiting for parts for the pump, I'd go ahead and take this assembly apart. And let me get this around here for you. When I say take it apart, I got to get this housing off right here. There's a snap ring on each end. Again, I think I've talked about that before. I got to get these snap rings out and then get the assembly off of the shaft. There is a bearing in here, a seal, and there's it's like a bushing, I guess I would call it, that the bearing rides on, or rather the seal rides on in here, that may or may not have to be replaced. If it does have to be replaced, that is that bushing. I'll end up probably pressing it off in my shop press, my 20-ton shop press, but we'll see when we get in there. My intent is not to show all the disassembly. Again, there are at least 2 or 3 very good YouTube videos that already show how to take this assembly apart. So for me to duplicate that would be redundant. I'm going to take it apart off camera. Once I get it apart, my intention is to come back and I'll show you what I found. I have not ordered replacement parts for this yet. Primarily is I want to see what kind of bearing, what type of bearing, what number it is. You can buy kits that includes the bearing, the seal, and the gasket that goes behind this flange here where it mounts up against the tractor. You can buy little kits that those parts are included relatively inexpensively. The reason I'm not going that route right now is depending on what I find with the bearing, I will probably replace it, but my point is I might just go down to my local bearing supplier and pick up a good quality bearing rather than a no-name bearing out of one of those kits. It will cost me quite a bit more money, but I really don't care. We're talking a matter of probably $15 or $20 difference, $25 maybe buying a good quality bearing and seal versus buying a no-name from Asia that who knows, versus a good quality European, Japanese, or American-made bearing. So that's what I'm thinking right now. We'll see once we get in there and what I discover, but that's my intention, is to get this assembly apart, and then eventually I'll bring you back and I'll show you what I found. Well, I'm not intending to show the disassembly of this hub. I do have an observation. I just, as you can see, installed this in my vise in preparation for removing these clips that retain this hub on the shaft. And my first observation is the bearing is noisy. I don't know if you can hear that or not. The bearing doesn't sound very good to me. It spins okay, but it doesn't, it's got a little bit of a gravelly sound to it. It's got a little bit of a feel. I can feel the bearing in there. So again, I don't know if that's indicative of the bearings wore out. I don't know yet, but we'll see here in a few minutes. Well, we got the housing off. It was pretty easy to get off. There's a snap ring in here. That's what this is. And I'd pull the snap ring, and then I thumped it on a wooden block with the shaft down on the floor, and I got it loose, and then I just took the brass hammer and I held it in my hands like this and tapped it with the brass hammer a couple times, and the shaft popped right out of the housing. That is the original bearing. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it does say Ford on it, right there where I'm pointing to. So I'm sure that's the original bearing. I think someone's been in here before, not 100% sure of it, but the shaft shows evidence of tool marks. Looks like somebody tried to drill it. Good luck with that in the field. And a hardened shaft like this and a hand drill, it's virtually impossible to do. It's not even easy to do with machine tools. couple things I'm not sure about. This bearing is loose, which is fine, I think. But the movement here that you see, I think this bushing right here is supposed to be down against that bearing, this press down against it. Clearly it's not. I'll have to look into that a little further. The bearing actually, now that the housing is off, feels pretty good. It doesn't feel gritty, and it seems to be spinning okay. I'm still going to replace it though, because I know water's been in here, as we've talked about before. In order to get the bearing off, I've got to get this bushing off right here, which my understanding is can be a little bit of a bear. It's a very tight press fit. I think if you try to grab it underneath here and just pull it with like a puller, probably this bearing will blow apart, because this is hardened steel. This is probably not. I'm guessing this is just some kind of it's probably a good quality, but not a hardened steel, this bushing. And this will shatter, I think. So I've got to think it through a little bit. What I'll probably do is heat this bushing up really, really hot, and then put it in my press, and then support it, and see if I can't press the shaft down and pull that bearing right off. That's what I think I'm going to do. So I think I'll check a few YouTube videos, think it through a little bit, and then proceed carefully from there. Getting this apart a little further, this housing, I don't think it's going to be any issue at all. There's another snap ring right here that I've got to pull out, and then press this. This is the seal. Press the seal out that way, and I don't think that's going to be any issue at all compared to dealing with this. As you can see, I got the assembly apart. It really wasn't difficult. This sleeve right here, bushing, was the worst part. I heated it up really, really hot. Walked away, let it normalize and cool for about half an hour. Came back, reheated it really, really hot with a MAP gas torch, and put it in my press, of course, my 20-ton hydraulic press, and supported it like this in the press, and put a socket right here and pushed, and it just came and slid right off. It really wasn't much of a problem at all. Same thing with the seal here. I cleaned this up a little bit. Now you can see it's got, I think, Ford on it right there. I'd improvised because I don't have a socket big enough, so what I did use was this bearing, the old bearing here, to get it started, get it moving, and then a combination of sockets and washers, and this pushed out really easy. I didn't even have to heat this up. So my intention is to replace the bushing, the sleeve, the bearing. And by the way, this bearing, now that I have it out, is very, very notchy. I mentioned before it seemed to be okay, but no way. This was made by Federal. I don't know if you can see that right there. Made in USA, of course. So there's a number there. I'll have to look that up, see what that represents in terms of modern replacement. The seal, there's really no nomenclature except for the Ford logo, and then it's got C/R. I'll have to look that up as well. So these three parts are going to be replaced. The housing I'll clean up. I haven't really done much with that. I'll clean that all up. I will repaint the outside. I do have some paint for this. I think it's a good match. So that'll be repainted. In terms of the shaft itself, there's a little damage to it. Again, I think I mentioned a previous clip here that looked like someone tried to drill it right there. I don't know why that would be, but I'm pretty sure that's what that indicates right there. Somebody tried to drill it. Obviously, they weren't successful. There's a few marks here that I think I can clean up with a file. I think it's completely serviceable. I don't think I'm going to have to replace it, but I'll clean it up with a file and touch it up and order these parts and go ahead and put it back together. I'll probably do another clip once I have the parts back, and I'll share those with you, and then I'll put the assembly back together somewhere in the future, and we'll shoot some video on that. An addendum here to the video, I did do some research on this bearing, and I discovered it's a 6205. That's the industry standard number for this particular size bearing. Very, very common, and it's actually used in motorcycles. I've used this bearing, I think, in transmissions and output shafts before. I don't have one in inventory. I thought maybe I did. I have a couple of different size bearings that are extra from various projects over the years. I do not have this one, so I am going to go down to my local bearing supplier and buy a new one, order a new one. The seal, I do think, is a little bit of a specialty item. I couldn't really find any reference to this. I'm going to take this along to the bearing supply house and see if, and they're a very large multinational industrial bearing supplier, very well known. And they have an outlet fairly local to me. I buy all my bearings and seals that I can through them and see if they can match this. If they can't, then I'll figure something else out. But that is the seal, and I can't find any numbers or do any cross-reference on that right now. But this, I'm definitely going to buy from my local supplier. This bushing is pretty straightforward. I could probably make one of these, frankly, on my lathe. It wouldn't be that challenging to do. I don't know if I got that big enough stock material for it. I have to get the right kind of steel. That would be the issue, is the materials, not making it. It does have a relief on this edge right here I'm pointing to. That's to go through the bushing, or rather the seal like that, to ease transition of fitment to the seal. So it does have a little relief right there, but other than that, there's really nothing particularly complicated about it. But I'm not gonna make one of those. You can buy these. These are reproduced. They're not expensive. I think they're like $6 or $7 US, so I'm not gonna worry about it. So that's my discovery on the bearing, seal, and a little conversation on the bushing. That's going to be it for this video today, folks. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.